What's up everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another story time video. Without further ado, this is the story about the time that I could have possibly been attacked by sharks. It was, I believe, I had either just finished my freshman or sophomore year of high school, and my family took a cruise to the Bahamas. So we were on our Bahamas cruise, and like, you know how cruises will like cruise and then they'll stop at like little islands or different places or wherever your cruise destination is. We stopped at one of the Bahama islands called Nassau, I don't know, people say it different ways, and we had decided that for our day in Nassau we were going to go snorkeling. So we had booked a snorkel boat trip out in the ocean. We got on our snorkel boat tour pretty early in the morning, and they took us out to this really nice spot in the ocean, and it was beautiful and crystal clear water, and we saw a lot of really cool fish and stuff. Part of this snorkel trip was after the snorkeling we would go snorkeling with sharks, and we thought it would be really cool. It was something we had never done before, and we were like, we're here, we might as well do something crazy. So that was gonna happen after the original like fish snorkeling. We finish up the fish snorkeling, and then we get back on the boat and we head towards the like shark snorkeling spot. And we didn't know like where we were going exactly, we just kind of knew that they were gonna go to this place that they take people where there's sharks and stuff. So on the way to the shark spot, our boat driver captain guy, he came over and he said, he told everybody that somebody had reported that there were some jellyfish in the water where we were gonna go snorkeling. So he said we were gonna get there and like check it out and just kind of see, make sure it was safe or whatever. And I was kind of like, okay, like, you know, when you're snorkeling in the water, like there's always a chance there's gonna be jellyfish, so it's kind of like you're in the ocean where they live, you know, there's a chance for anything. So I imagine maybe just like a couple jellyfish here and there, like whatever. We are coming up, and mind you, this was not like the tropical crystal clear water we had just been at. This was like in the deep part of the ocean. It was just like blue water, like dark blue water. You could not see below you at all, and it was really, really rough water. Like the boat was like going like this and like rocking a bunch. Then I look over, like somebody was saying like, oh my gosh, look at the water, and I look over the side of the boat and the water looks like somebody like bled out in it. It's like red, it's basically like red water, and I was like trying to figure out what was going on, and I was like, why is this water red? And then I realized those are all the jellyfish. These jellyfish were like this big, they're like this big, and there is just massive amounts of them, like in swarms, just in the water, so many of them that it looks like the water is like red. For a minute I was like, okay, this can't be like where we're snorkeling, like there's no way, but it was. So I'm like sitting there like totally shocked, and the captain and the tour guides, they were saying like, oh, don't worry about the jellyfish, it'll be fine, the stings only hurt for about 24 hours. And I'm like, okay, but like, do you see how many of them there are? Like, okay, if they only hurt for 24 hours, like my whole body's gonna be covered in stings, like they're everywhere. He's like, this is the spot, you know, where we're gonna swim with the sharks. If you want, you can still go, you know, we recommend it, but if like you don't want to go because the jellyfish, like we understand. So a lot of people ended up like kind of backing out and being like, no, we don't want to get in the water. They told us then with the sharks that what it was they had like a big like chunk of meat like on the bottom of the ocean, and it was about 30 feet deep, I believe, and the sharks would like swim around the meat at the bottom, and then we'd be at the top of the water, and so it was like safe. So I'm looking over the edge of the water, I like have all my snorkel stuff on, like my mom and my dad and my brother and I, we were all like debating it. I remember like looking at like my dad and being like, I'm not going. One of the tour guides says to me, yes you are, and pushes me off the back of the boat into the water. So I didn't even have time to really think about like how it was gonna feel when I jumped into a big swarm of jellyfish. I didn't have time to think about it because I was just pushed off the back of this boat, and I'm just waiting, like I'm like sitting like this, and I'm literally waiting to just feel like all over my body, just feel jellyfish sting me up and down my body. I didn't feel anything, and they were all over me, like I'm floating through them, they're hitting me in different places of my body, they're all around me, I can see them, and I was not feeling any stings. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like, you know, I'm already in the water, they don't seem to be stinging me, so I'm just gonna see what happens. And then I realized that because the water was so rough, there was a lifeline in the water, just like a rope that extended off the back of the boat, and like everyone who went in the water to snorkel was supposed to hold on to this lifeline. So I'm like holding onto the lifeline and I'm like going out or whatever, and I told my family, I was like, you know, they're not stinging me, like, so they all came in with me. And it was really cool. Like, we were watching the sharks. They were a pretty good distance below us. It was really neat. They were just swimming around, and like, I've always been like a little bit scared of sharks, but I also find them like extremely fascinating and cool, and they're one of my favorite animals, so I was really excited. And we were watching them for a while. I was taking some videos on my GoPro that I had at the time, and it was just really cool. So then we start noticing that the waves are starting to get a little bit rougher, and it was getting harder to hold onto the lifeline, and like people were kind of like hitting each other because there was a lot of people on like one rope. And then I noticed that like the sharks weren't totally staying down by the meat anymore. They were kind of like getting a little bit distracted. I don't know if it was by all of us like basically like flying around up on the surface, and they start kind of like getting a little higher, and they're still kind of like doing their little shark thing where they like, you know, move around or whatever, but they're starting to like rise a little bit. So I'm looking down. I remember I was with my dad, and if he was around he would vouch for me on this. We were looking down and we were watching, and out of nowhere from like behind us, under us, swims this shark, and it was maybe 5 feet below us. Like, it was very, very close to us, and the people on this tour had said that like they would not get that close to us, and that if they did get that close to us, it was not safe. I don't remember the type of shark. I want to say they were like reef sharks. I want to say reef sharks. They were maybe like 6 feet, so they weren't like huge, but they were still sharks. They're still, you know, they're still sharks. So at this point, my dad and I like look at each other through our like snorkel masks, and we're like, whoa, you know, and we kind of were like freaking out a little. And I took this picture on my GoPro when it happened. I took a photo of it, and there's no zoom on it. Like, the GoPro doesn't have a zoom or anything, but this is when that shark swam that close to us. I noticed the people around me kind of start like heading back to the boat. So we kind of like put our head up above the water, and they were saying like the waves are too rough, like we're taking everybody in, like it's not safe anymore. So they're like motioning everybody to come in. So we kind of start heading back on our like lifeline or whatever, and we were one of the first people off the boat, so we were like at the very end of this line. And so people start getting off and getting up on the ladder to the boat, getting back in the boat. And it wasn't like a huge boat, it was like an average like tour snorkeling boat. I think what happened was people started getting really confused because they didn't realize it was because the water was rough. I think people were under the impression that people were like getting out because either the jellyfish were stinging or because the sharks were like getting too close to people, or like they were like not doing what they're supposed to or whatever. I think people started panicking because people started like scrambling out of the water, like scrambling to get up on this boat, and that kind of made me panic, and it made everyone else panic. And at that point, my mom and my brother had gotten off the boat already, and so they were telling us like to come in. It was like finally like our turn to get on the boat, and there were still a few people kind of like off the lifeline just floating around that had come back to the boat to try to like get back on or whatever. So I start climbing up the ladder, and at this point like I'm like looking around, and like there are some sharks like surfacing pretty much, and they're way closer to us than they should have been. Apparently if they get closer to the surface, the guy said that like they could be like curious as to like what we are, and like they have been known to like taste people, which means they bite people to see if you're food or not. I see them kind of like off on the side, like kind of surfacing a little bit. I'm panicking at this point, you know, because I don't know what's really even happening. So I get on the ladder, like I had like one foot on the ladder, and I still have my like flippers on, and I went to go pull myself up the ladder, and this big like fat older guy gets up on the ladder next to me, and he hip checks me off the ladder, off the side of the boat, into the water where I'm not attached to the lifeline, and the waves are super rough, and I'm not a very good swimmer to begin with. And this dude just like, he really had no shame in just like taking this smaller like high school girl and just pushing her off the boat because he was so eager to get out. He literally was thinking like every man for himself. Screw you, I'm pushing you off the side of the boat. At this point I'm like in a full panic because I don't know what's around me. I don't know what's happening under me. I can barely even like swim because these waves are getting so big in the water. My dad, thank God he was behind me. He waited for me to get out first, and he kind of like reached over and grabbed me and like pulled me back in and helped me get out back onto the boat, and then he followed. And it was like 5 minutes maybe after we got out of the water, because we were some of the last ones after everyone got out on the water. One of the guides was pointing over the side of the boat, and he was like, look, all the sharks were like at the surface of the water, like, and they were like swimming frantically and like being kind of aggressive, and they were all at the surface of the water. And I was like, they were probably like right underneath me. They probably saw me splash into their like shark frenzy, and I somehow like didn't get bit, didn't get attacked, like nothing bad happened, thankfully, but I have no idea what could have happened. And I still, like, my whole family, like, couldn't believe this guy that just, like, sent me off the side of the boat. And amazingly, nobody got stung by any jellyfish. Nobody got a single sting, considering there were so many of them. Like, in some of those clips that I put of the sharks, you can see the jellyfish all over the place and how they were small, but our guide was saying that they were capable of stinging you and it would last about 24 hours. So that is the story of the time that I essentially fell into a shark frenzy. Things could have ended up really bad, but thankfully they didn't. I still feel the same about sharks, obviously. Like, I would never mess with them. I never really want to be like face to face with them, because the reality is they are bigger and more aggressive than me and I can't really defend myself very well. But I still think that they're super, super cool and I'm still very fascinated by them. So that was my Bahamas snorkeling with sharks adventure. I hope you guys liked this story time video. If you've ever had a similar experience, make sure to comment down below. If you liked my story time video, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my channel. So thanks for watching and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye! Right.